Hello, welcome to the Coachable Players Podcast. This podcast is built on the belief that the most successful athletes, employees, and business leaders share one trait: they are coachable. This podcast is about feedback, growth, and leading with purpose on and off the field. And I'm extremely excited, pumped, stoked, can't say enough words about it, to have Rocky Bleier on as a guest. How we doing, sir?
Doing fine, John. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great seeing you. You fit the mold for this show. We're talking with athletes who excelled on the field and in the business world. Boom. It's as if a podcast was made just for you.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. But no, it's great to have you. Why don't we just jump right in and just
Okay.
start talking? Can we start maybe with we all know some Steelers stories, and I hope to get a few out of you today.
That's right. But I think you're talking about success and you talk about coachable people,
Yeah.
and I think that it all starts somewhere within in my case, in my athletic career, somewhere. You grow up, I grew up in a small Midwestern town, Appleton, Wisconsin, and, like everybody else, you're playing pickup games in the neighborhood and some organized games in the rec leagues around, going through going through grade school and so on. And I didn't play sports. Let me say, I played football in fifth grade. In sixth grade, I had Osgood-Schlatter's disease, and so it's a growth disease. Seventh grade, they canceled the football program
Oh,
because it was a rowdy crew of young men and women that were older anyway. So I didn't play until eighth grade. So we played at the grade school. It was a block from the house. We played in eighth grade, and I remember playing and so on. But I think the biggest, I mean, I remember playing. Success, we had a good team. It was fine. It was neighborhood kids, and we played. But now you have to take a look at the time frame. So I'm going back, to this baby boomers coming of age. All right. So now
yep.
all of a sudden, new schools have to be built in the area. And in this case specifically, there was a brand new Catholic school that was built in my hometown of Appleton. The only one that was closer was, maybe 20 miles away, 15 miles away, and so on. But what it did was it drew all the kids that might have gone to public schools within the area into this one Catholic school. And because of that, you got good athletes coming together. Then you have to have a catalyst. And in my case, and the catalyst was a fiery young coach by the name of Gene Torchy Clark. And Gene was, and Coach Clark, or Torchy as we called him,
Yeah.
was the St. Mary's grade school basketball coach. And they were arch enemies of St. Joseph's, where I went. And
Yeah.
so we fought, but they always beat us all the time because of Torchy Clark. All of a sudden, he moves to the high school and he gets this core of people together. And he's a fiery little guy, played basketball at Marquette in college, but was a good coach. And he got the most out of his players just uh, by his own personality, by his expectations of each and every player. And I think that becomes a part of it, knowing your players or knowing your people and knowing what buttons to press and how to get the most out of them. And it's not always yelling and screaming, but it's sometimes just a quiet this or that, and I was the kind of kid I didn't want to be yelled at, and
Yeah.
so I would do whatever the coach would tell you to do just so that you weren't,
Figure
brought
it
on
out.
the cart. And so and because of that. And I have to tell you this, we never lost a football game. And we lost, and we were the number one ranked team in high school, in the state of Wisconsin in football, and we won the state championship in basketball as
Wow.
well because
Awesome.
of Torchy. All right, fine. But what that did was that it just put your name up, somewhere within the state from an athletic point of view. And so now you started getting some, oh, would you come to our state school? Would you go to the University of Wisconsin? Would you do this and so on? And so, it, and, I didn't know where to go or what to
Yeah.
do. And so I got a piece of advice from someone, one of the one of the recruiters, and he said, "Listen, you're going to get a lot of scholarship offers, and you're going to be invited to visit the schools. And so every time you go visit a school, what are they going to do? They're going to roll out the red carpet,
Yep.
show you the best of times, show you the good side of the school, and so on and so on. And by the time you have to make the decision, what is it going to be based on?" He said, "My suggestion to you is choose a school that you would like to graduate from, not
Okay.
necessarily play football at, but graduate, because anything can happen during your career. You can get
Yep.
hurt and not, but you'll always have an education." And I thought, well, that made common sense. So I had a responsibility. I went to the University of Wisconsin. It was just, it was big. It was a big state school, and there was a
Yep.
lot of people there. And so, and then I went to Boston College out there, and I liked Boston, not necessarily Boston College, but Boston.
Yeah.
And then I went then I went to Notre Dame. And so as I tell people, I said, then I did what every good, excuse me, Catholic boy was taught to do, and that was go to church, pray for guidance, direction,
Mhm.
and then, like every good Catholic boy, I did what my mother wanted me to do, and that was go to Notre Dame.
There
No,
you go.
but anyway, so I end up at Notre Dame, and with a brand new coach by the name of Ara Parsegian,
Yep.
who comes in much like Torchy, who had an impact on his players. Now you got a college coach came in from Northwestern, and all of a sudden set a tone of expectation
And this is your
from.
senior year or junior? This is
This is now I'm my excuse me. I'm out of high school now. I'm going to.
a junior though, right? After Boston College and
Yeah, so no, it's my senior year.
oh, wait,
So
senior.
after my senior year, that after the football season, you get to
Yep.
check, and so it was that senior year, and so I decided to go. And so the next fall, I go to Notre Dame, and
Oh, gotcha.
they get a brand new coach there by the name of Vera Parsegian.
Yep.
The coach before that was a coach by the name of Huey DeVore. And when I took my trip to Notre Dame, they had won. I think they had won two
Uh-oh.
games. I think they won two games that whole season. But anyway, so I met Coach DeVore, and he said, "Hey, you come here, you got a scholarship, and so on." And okay, fine. Then we get a brand new coach who I didn't know or anything about him by the name of Vera Parsegian. And then I go back for another visit. And there was a certain attitude about him and how he approached his players and the game, and so that was a big rub off, on us as we go. So who knows what's going to take place at that time? But because of the coach getting the right people, recruiting wise, all of a sudden by my junior year, we have a dynamite team, and we win the national championship in college. And so I become captain of the team my senior year. And because of the success, it's like coming out of the success, well, you get recognized for your contribution, to the success of that team. And we had some All-American great players on that team to allow us to get to that position. I do not put myself in that category. I was just a part of the backfield of that team and so on. But I get drafted into the National Football League.
Awesome.
Yeah, by
Pittsburgh.
the
There you
Steelers.
go.
Now, to your listeners, I was not their first choice. I did not make their top 10 list. I was the 417th person picked in the draft that year. I was a 16th round draft choice.
Wow.
Fortunately, from my point of view, there were 17 rounds. At least I was not the last guy picked. I
Yes.
thought, if I might have a chance to be able to make this team. And people said, well, how did you make the team back then? Well, do you remember who played for the Steelers in the 60s?
Nope.
That's how come I made the team.
There you
Because
go.
nobody remembers who played for him during that period of time. And as my story goes, then I got a chance to play 10 of 14 games. And of course, there was a war going on in Vietnam. And ultimately, I slipped through the draft board and got drafted into the armed services and ultimately went to Vietnam. And then part of that story was then to have to fight to come back for the injuries I sustained over there. But I look back on it in the regards that it's a kind of ownership of a team that gave you an opportunity. And
Mhm.
so I came back out of the hospital in 1970 for that season, and I went to training camp, and it took its toll. I mean, it beat me up. The surgeries I had before, and having having been shot through the left leg and a grenade blown up through
Oh.
my feet and my lower legs, and the scar tissue and the
Oh.
shrapnel that was still there. But I went to training camp, and as I said, it took its total. And Chuck basically released me. Chuck Noll
Mhm.
was a new head coach, and so he released me, and rightly so. But then the Dan Rooney, son of Mr. Rooney,
Mhm.
owner of the team, who was general manager at the time, he actually he called me up and he said, "Listen, I talked to Chuck. He said we're going to put you on injured reserve. We want our doctors to take a look at you and maybe have another operation and see what we can do to be able to work out the problems." And so, because of Dan, and Dan's feeling basically, as I found out much later, was that, well, here's a person that, served our country. At least we can give him a chance or an opportunity to do
That's
something
awesome. That's
thereafter.
awesome.
So, yeah. And so it's kind of that belief that somebody cares about the people that play for them and or work for them. And so I came back and had an operation, another operation. I was on the injured reserve that year. Came back the following year. I made the taxi squad that year, developmental squad. So they bought me 2 years
That's awesome.
kind of to heal, get
Yeah.
stronger, and so on. And then you have to do something. I mean, this is an opportunity that you have to do. So you just lift and you worked out. And so 1972, I come back I'm the leading ground gainer during the exhibition season.
Nice. Yeah.
During the exhibition, I'm leading
Yeah.
ground during the exhibition
Yeah.
season.
Actually,
So
yeah.
good enough to make the team. I never carried the ball that season at all. Played special teams primarily. Came back the following year, leading ground gainer again during the exhibition season.
Okay.
Got to carry the ball once during that season. But all of a sudden in my mind, okay, so you're now this is a 4-year process,
Yeah.
from coming out of the service, and you're going,
That's
and
determination right there. Yes.
well, to get there, and after the 73 season, I left the Steelers. I quit. I mean, I left the Steelers only because of the fact that to make the team again, I was going to have to fight with every free agent, draft choice
Yep.
rookie once again to be able to do it. And I just didn't think it was fair. I came back. They gave me credit for 5 years, with playing in the NFL, the minimum you need for retirement of some basis. And I thought maybe my life's going in another direction. And then you get an outside influence. I'm in Chicago, and I get a teammate who's coming in to Chicago, and he calls me, and he said, "Let's get together," and I decline, and the only reason because I'm not going back to the Steelers, and he pushed, I declined some more, and he pushed some more, and then he asked me the question why, and I said to him, I said, "Well, I quit.
Hmm.
I'm not coming back," and he said, "You can't quit." He said, if you quit, think about it. If you quit, what you have already done is that you have already made a decision for that coaching staff. Do you like them well enough to make decisions for them? He said, no, your responsibility, if this is what you want to do, you come back and you make them make a decision. You back them in the corner. You give them every reason to either
Yes.
keep you or release you, but you
Awesome.
don't cut yourself.
Yes.
And so it was just the arm twisting I needed, maybe from an older brother friend that I had. And I went back, and everything that I perceived did take place. And I had to fight with every free agent, draft choice, and rookie once again to be able to make the team.
Yep.
Leading ground gainer during the exhibition season.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Now, the reason I tell you that, the reason I had been the leading ground gainer during that period of time
Hmm.
wasn't because of the fact I was bigger, better, faster than all the other running backs. It was the simple fact that I played more than anybody else during that period of time. I carried the ball more than anybody else during that period of time. Given those two simple statistics, I better be the leading ground gainer
Yeah.
because all they were providing for me was an opportunity to be able to make the team. And they had to keep me. And I was the fifth running back out of four. So tell people, back playing
Yeah.
special teams, when unbeknownst to us, Franco Harris, our starting
Yep.
fullback, got hurt. The backup became the starter.
Okay.
I became the backup to the backup.
There you
Wow.
go.
I'd never been there before. So with renewed vigor, that first game, second game, third game, um, right before the half, the backup gets hurt,
Yeah.
and I'm inserted in the game at fullback, along with my running mate, a guy by the name of Preston Pearson. And I tell you this because Preston, right before the half, breaks one, 43 yards down the sidelines, and he scores and gives us a lead, and we go in halftime. We go over assignments, adjustments, and I'm thinking to myself, who's going to start the second half?
Yeah.
Maybe those guys that got you the lead in the first half,
Yeah.
and we get to start the second half. And as a team, we won the game. So, following week, Franco's still banged up. Preston and I get to start. And as a team, we win that game. The
Nice.
week thereafter, it's a Monday night game, an extra day of healing.
Uh-huh.
Franco now becomes healthy.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh.
But that's okay. At least I got a chance to play, show, prove what I could do. We had our pregame meal. Afterwards, we got a breakout group. All the running backs get together, go over last minute assignments, adjustments. And coach gives us the first three plays of the game, and he looks around and he said, "Okay, Franco, you and Rock will start tonight."
Oh, there you go.
Momentarily, you have to understand, I was quite confused. I didn't know how we both could play the same position at the same
Yeah. Yeah.
time. When it dawned on me I was going to play the fullback position, I was going to play the other running back position. And the and the reason we get confused is because I hadn't practiced that position. So we get to start and we play that game, and we win that game,
Yeah.
and you get to start the following week, and we win that game, and we start the remaining part of the season, and we win the division, and we go to the playoffs. And we win the playoffs and we go to the Super Bowl for the first
Nice.
time. And we win the Super Bowl and we play 6 more years together. We win three more Super Bowls. And in 1976, Franco and I became the second set of running backs in the history of the NFL, each to gain 1,000 yards rushing in the same season.
That's
And then
awesome.
after 12 years, I did. Now, I tell you that story because the reason I got a chance to play or to start wasn't because of my size or speed, two things I do not possess,
Yeah.
but ultimately because this becomes the important thing, ultimately because of one talent. Prior to that breakout group, all those many years ago, Chuck Noll came up to our backfield coach and said, listen, you have a weakness in your backfield. Who is your best blocker? He said, Bleier.
No,
He said, then start him.
there you go.
One talent. Okay. And all of a sudden, that fine line of one that connects our life, if you get to look at it, came, if it wasn't for that one talent, I might not have gotten that opportunity. If it wasn't for Preston's one touchdown, we might have never played that second half. If it wasn't for the one injury, might not have had a chance to play. If it wasn't for the draft choice, I might not have gone to
Yeah.
that team. And so it's the same thing in life. But along the way, in no matter what we may do, you have to prepare yourself, in preparation for trying to make the team and trying to be the best that you can be, given the standards that are around you. So, and so it's kind of the basis of everything that my everything that I've come to believe, and that you and I, we're human beings, we have strengths and we have weaknesses. And when it's our responsibility, really be able to define what those strengths are and what those weaknesses are, and understand them within all the other people that we work with as well.
Yeah.
And so we try to become, try try to even things out, but also to fortify what weaknesses and I know what my weaknesses were, but Franco and the other people, were able to
Yeah.
pick up, what that might be. And so sometimes you can't dwell on that. And it's a team sport. So, and that's the biggest other aspect. You can be big, you can be fast, you can be the fastest guy in the team. But if you don't have anybody blocking for you,
Yep. It doesn't help.
you're not going to get in. I mean, you can be a great receiver, but if you don't have anybody throwing it to you or
Yep.
giving you the chance or the opportunity, so it all works hand
Yeah.
in hand. And that's probably, one of the basic things that I've learned in organized sports that has been transferred over into my life, my world, and in my businesses. And so,
Yeah.
because it's the people that you have around you, and so that becomes very, very, very important, and how you treat them,
Hmm.
much like. Being able to, you don't have to be a yeller, you don't have to be a screamer, you don't have to
Yeah.
point out how bad they're doing or so on, but you kind of take them aside, you learn from them, you show them what they can do. That's why you're here, you have a talent, maybe
Yep.
you just need some direction and so on. So,
Yeah. So here's my takeaway from the Rocky Bleier story here. I love it. The story's awesome, amazing. I love it. Uh, you have determination. You went, 4 years. You kept coming back, leading rusher, but you kept going. You kept going. You could have quit. You got that nice encouragement that kept you going and make them make the decision. Um, you also had good coaching, starting with Coach Clark back in high
right.
school, and then and
Yep.
then Chuck Noll. Now, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. But by Chuck Noll pointing out your strength, that helped you to get on the field. And you could weigh in on this, but I think it also improved on your weaknesses because you got the encouragement. The boss, the coach, the head guy is putting you out there and he's giving you a pat on the back saying this guy can block. That had to feel
Right.
pretty good for them to
No,
get that encouragement, and you probably played better in other areas of the game.
all right. Now, I have to tell you this
Yeah.
is that I did not know that reason until years after I
Okay.
retired. He wasn't the kind of guy to tell you why you're playing, or
Gotcha.
whatever. Those things I found out later on.
Yeah.
But I think part of it also is that It's your own desire of what you want to become and
Mhm.
what you want to do. So along the way, along the way is that I also knew that I had to, to impress the coaching, to impress the coaches. There are certain things that I'm going to, as an example. So, what's one of the biggest things that we talk about? Well, let's say in the game of football specifically, is as a yard mark by the
Mhm.
caliber of player that you might be. One of those is your 40 time.
Yeah.
Boy, he runs a 4.340 or 4.440, You
Yeah.
can't catch, but he can.
Yeah.
But so speed all of a sudden, and one of the things is this is that uh, it also becomes an excuse to release you. He lost a step.
Yeah.
He just, yeah, if they want to have a reason,
Yeah.
they can find reasons, for doing that. So I did not have great speed. I had good speed.
Mhm.
I had good quickness. The biggest thing is also from a mindset point of view in the game of football as a running back. If you have a 4.0 average per carry, that's pretty good.
Mhm.
3 carries and it's a first down. 3 carries, it's a first
Yep.
down. So if you get that average, that's pretty good. Um, and it's not all about speed. So it's about blocking, it's about quickness, but it can be a detriment if you don't have other things going for you. And they say, okay, fine, he just doesn't have the quickness, or he doesn't have that, he doesn't have it comes down to, well, his 40 time can be an excuse. So I had to work on that. I mean, I had to work on I had a quick start. I mean, I could go from the backfield to the line of scrimmage pretty quick because
Mhm.
I'd anticipate the snap of the ball. I knew where I needed to go. So from point A to B, I could do that very, very well. Now, if I got out in the open, I didn't have that great burst of speed that a lot of people have, but in the long haul, you go, okay, fine. So, um, I remember my rookie year coming to camp, and so they timed. It was the first time I was ever timed, in the 40-yard dash, and I ran like a 4.85, 4.8, 4.85, 40,
Yeah.
which is okay, fine. It was average. It wasn't anything great, At least it wasn't five
Yeah. Yeah.
seconds, but it was okay, fine. So then coming back, from the military, trying to make that comeback and so on. Two things needed to take place in my mind. One was to increase my 40 time, and secondly was I needed to get. I felt I'm bigger. Okay. So lifting became a very, now you have to understand, unlike today, lifting weights was not a big part of
No, yeah.
playing football. Okay, and no one compared what you could. But it just started to turn about that latter part of the '60s into the '70s, and so John Kolb, who was an offensive tackle for us. And John was, the strongest guy on the team when he, came in, and John could bench press um, 600 pounds. He was an offensive
Massive.
tackle, so he was
Yeah.
massive. So, and anyway, but so we, we, so anyway, when I came back, I started lifting. I needed to get stronger and so on. And I got to a point where, John could bench 450 pounds, not 600. He could squat over 600. He benched about
Yeah.
450 pounds, or so.
That's still
My
strong.
Yeah, that's right. So I came back anyway. So I came back. So after those two, three, in by 1974,
Yeah.
75. I weighed 218 pounds. I bench press 455 pounds. I
Whoa.
squatted over 600 pounds. I had 18 and a half inch biceps.
Nice.
And you know how come I knew that? Because I measured them myself.
There you go.
So anyway, so they could see that work ethic, or
Yeah.
the changes that had taken place. And then also along the way, I had to work on my 40 time. And it's all in the 40 time is that most guys aren't track sprinters. Okay. They're football players. So
Yeah.
they work on balance. I mean, they come on, and when you
Real quick.
start real, yeah. So if as a sprinter and a track sprinter, your first step is forward and forward
Mhm.
and forward and forward and forward and forward. In football, your first step is to the side. Because
Yeah.
you're working on balance and where you're going to go, and so it just psychologically makes a difference. So I got a track coach, and I worked with him, and he showed the starts again, coming out on starts. You're working on starts, coming on starts, getting the feet in front of you, et cetera, et cetera. So I was then able to come back and in training camp, and so in training camp I ran a 4-5. I ran a 4-4. I ran a 4-4, 4-4-5, and a 4-5.
Faster than rookie year.
Right, yes, ran
Oh.
faster and bigger. So now,
Oh.
now I'm 218 pounds,
Yeah.
and so to the point, I'm going to tell you this, that Frenchy Fuqua,
Yeah.
my teammate, was a funny man, and he gave me the best piece of advice. And he talked with a little lisp,
Yeah.
Frenchy did, and he said, "Rock," listen. He said, "Listen, you run the 40, you only run it once. You run it once. That's it. Otherwise, then they think if you got a bad time, they think you got slower or so on. So
Yeah.
he ran it once. He had good speed. He ran it once, and so he never ran it again. But you go, oh, Frenchie, And so anyway, I tell you that story because of the fact is that you're right. In their mind, it's set. This is
Yeah.
what he ran. Okay, fine, and so I never ran one thereafter. I tell you that in all honesty, because it's really what you produce. It's what you produce, and
Yeah.
not and not necessarily your 40 time. That only becomes an excuse if they want to let you go.
Yep. Another reason. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So another reason. So you just you think about what your weaknesses are, and you start working on them, and start becoming better in that aspect of business, as well as in playing the game.
Hmm. Do you see any sort of common themes amongst all the coaches that you had? All the good coaches? Any sort
Yeah.
of
The common theme in all of them, and even with is that is that um, they were instructive. They were instructive people. They wanted you to succeed. And so they would, if they had how can I say this? If there was a um, problem or a question, um, they would talk to you on the side, or catch you alone someplace, or come into the office. Never in front of the other players did I ever see them yell or scream. Now, Era, no, Era Parsegian. Now, Era used a tactic, is that at times, so he might grab a player. Okay, he might who's might be loafing. He'd grab a player and he'd kick him in the rear end
yeah.
and tell him to get it, straightened up and so on. And so and so that and so sometimes before practice, before practice even started, he would take that person in front of everybody else and kick him in the rear end. And just, he said, so I don't have to do it later on. you
Yeah.
know. Anyway, he made a joke out of the, out of the instruction, or that, and how he handled the situations. But I always remembered that. But most of them, weren't going to embarrass you in front of
Hmm.
the other players.
Yeah. Is there anything like
And
what are
that it's also and as far as the approach to the game, all my coaches, in all honesty, I had a respect for their knowledge of the game and what they taught you. And not only as a head coach, but also as an assistant coach, because it all starts with the head coach coming down and how he approaches his defensive line coach and the offensive line coach and et cetera, et cetera, because those are the guys that you deal with on a daily basis. So my backfield coach, ultimately, Dick Hoke, was a guy by the name of Dick Hoke, who I played with as a rookie.
okay, yeah.
And then he sat out a year and then came back as the Steelers backfield coach. And
Yep.
so we had a rapport, and Dick was the kind of guy of so on. And so yeah, and I also think that how you as a person approach your job and or a career and or playing is that you have to be coachable.
Hmm.
I think you have to be coachable. Not that you know it all or you're better than anybody else, kind of an attitude. It's like, okay, fine, what can I learn? How can I be better? How can I mesh better with the team, or whatever's necessary to have us be successful.
Yeah. Was there a difficult transition going from a coachable player to not playing anymore to a business leader, a business owner, and now you're doing the coaching and you're any sort of issues there at all or
Well, yeah, there was because so my transition to when I stopped playing, during the years and this was and I should say this is that during that period of time is that players had off-season jobs.
okay.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, as you start planning for, you might not do it in the first couple of years, but all of a sudden it's like the third year, fourth year, fifth year, the average is only 3.5 years or 4 years, and then you start looking at your future. What are you going to do job wise?
Yeah.
It's not as if you made enough money to retire,
Yeah.
like today.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
is that you have to, what are you going to do? What's your future and so on. So and part of that period of time, I got into the insurance business.
Okay.
And so, that was an interesting transition. I mean, just to learn and learn and what that was about, and trying to build a book. And one of the things I learned was I was not a great sales kind of guy, in that regards. And so then that waned out over a period of time. And then I had the opportunity to do do personal appearances to speak.
Okay.
Okay, so um, and talk about success. We're talk quote about the Steelers and
Yeah.
success, and lessons learned and so on and so on. And then another opportunity exploded or came my way about 20 years ago to be in the construction business. And so that is where I am right now. But
Awesome.
anyway,
Yes.
so we have a yeah. So we built uh, um, a construction company here as a general contractor, and it was an opportunity. It's just like an opportunity it presented itself, and most of our work is done with the federal government. The federal government came out with service disabled, veteran owned small business entity
Yeah.
in which in the contracting field. And so it was, excuse me, a position that I was able to fulfill and start. And by the nudge of a couple brother-in-laws, he said,
There
maybe we
you go.
should do this and so on. So one thing leads to another thing, and we started the business. And so ultimately, and it's funny as we look back, as I look back over that period of time, of like, my, woo, we struggled in the beginning, we did all right. I mean, we had people, we hired people and so on, maybe not the right people, but then, you go through that and it's not as if I knew anything about the construction business. It was in it, and you learn on the job, kind of a training, and so and how to manage people. And we let, then I had to fire some people, hire some more people, and so now we got it going really well. I really got, I got some great
You
people
do.
that are working together that that fit one another and get along. And so it's like a team. And so
Yeah.
and it's a and now I'm kind of like Mr. Rooney.
There you go. You are like the GM, the
I
GM
saw on the
president.
sand line and go, hey, that a way to go, guy.
Yeah. You got to get that big cigar when you walk around,
That's
huh?
right. I should get the cigar.
No, the culture you build at your company is amazing. As you know, we honored Stephen this summer. Fitzpatrick. Stephen
Right.
Fitzpatrick was
Yeah.
honored Labor Champion of the Year, and it
Right.
was great. All the employees came out to be there for him and to help celebrate his success. So
Yeah.
you have a great culture there. Good stuff. But you are like the GM now.
It's,
But speaking of that though, do you see parallels with coachable athletes compared to coachable employees?
oh yeah. I mean, yeah, it just, it's in it and it's and it's people and the makeup of the people, and being coachable or being and I think it's part of, and I say from an athletic point of view, and that somewhere along the line you get to learn being adaptable and within from in the coaching and taking advice and so on, and wanting to work together as a team, and that becomes, I think, very important, as you build a culture. Not that I look for, for people, but it's kind of the
Yeah.
same as it's kind of the same kind of an attitude. And so, been in the who've been in the construction business at different levels and worked, their way up to
Yeah.
the supervisor role, and, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have to find those right people that are willing to be adaptable and know that they're not the second coming.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. And lastly, I mean, I enjoyed this. I could go on all day. I know
That's
you probably don't want to, but I could do this all day here. But I
right.
just want to know, is there any sort of maybe advice, whatever, to young professionals or young athletes, whatever, how to be coachable or how to make it in life as either an athlete or in the business world?
Well, I think it's an image that you have to I think it's an image that you have to develop on how you see yourself and what you want to become, because that allows you to become coachable, and to be able to take advice along the way. And so you get to be willing to, willing to learn, willing to make some mistakes, and maybe take some chances along the way. But it's really, understanding, well, you have some bad coaches sometimes, and you don't necessarily are always in the position of having great mentors or to help you along. And so you have to find those, and don't get disgruntled about it, or and then you got to look at yourself and say, okay, fine. do I like this industry? Do I like this business? And it may mean that you may have to move someplace else, and if it's what you're looking for, and be willing to do that. But I think it's your image, and how you see yourself, and how coachable you can become, in that you don't have the insecurity of saying, "Oh, I can do it all," or "I'm the person that's is the best here," whatever it is. Because, like in the game of football, size and speed don't necessarily always come together in making the best player, and so it's that person who is willing to sacrifice, work with the team, and become better himself, and then try to better his position, that offensive line or running backs or whatever it might be. And so a lot of times it's just then your influence by what you do and how you operate that is exposed to the people that you work with. So they see your attitude and how you approach it, and you're not griping all the time or complaining you're not getting paid enough, or, it's a bad job or whatever it is. It's how you handle those situations that rub off on other people, that ultimately reflect back on you, as a leader, or as an influencer within the industry.
Well said. Well
Yeah.
said indeed. I love it. Next time we talk, I'd like to do an episode just on the Steeler catch with the one behind you, your Super Bowl catch,
that's,
the one where
that's
you dump super high in the air.
as you see it back up
Yeah.
there,
The whole time I'm
is that
thinking, I'm like, I hope he works this into the conversation. I hope he works this.
so people so I'm turning around here so
Yeah.
that that's right over here.
There
Okay,
it is.
fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have to tell you. So here's the situation in that game. Okay, in
Okay.
that game.
Awesome.
In that game, I carried the ball twice
Okay.
for 1 yard. I caught one pass and I recovered one onside kick at the end of the game. And I made the cover of Sports
There you
Illustrated
go.
because, because of that catch. And that catch had taken place right before the half.
Okay.
It did, as we had moved the ball. As we had moved the ball downfield. It was yeah, so we had the ball right before the half, and then the score was tied 14-14, and all of a sudden we started to move the offense, and we picked up
Okay.
the yard here, and then as I was saying, um, in that game, all of a sudden we started to move the ball, and we're down on the 7 yard line.
Okay.
Okay, and it's third down with 1 yard to go for a first down. And and here was the play. And the play was I called was 135 slant. All right, fine. So it was Bradshaw. Bradshaw faked to Franco Harris into the line of scrimmage. I'd go at a 45-degree angle down to the line of scrimmage. I'd cut down the line of scrimmage, and it was a play action play. Bradshaw would hit me with the ball quickly on the line of scrimmage. They'd pick up 3 yards. I would turn quickly, and pick up those 3 yards. That was the play. So when the ball snapped, none of that happened. So the linebacker came across the line of scrimmage. I had to cut my pattern short, so I turned it up in front of him, and running upfield. Bradshaw was faking to Franco into the line of scrimmage, and when he pulled the ball out, looking for that receiver, myself, down that
Yeah.
line of scrimmage, and when he did not spot me,
Yeah.
as I like to say, being the smart, intelligent
Yeah.
quarterback that we perceived him to be, it finally dawned on him that it might be a broken play. So he tucked the ball underneath his arm and he started to scramble to his right. As he's scrambling to his right, that sideline was looming up.
Yeah.
Um, and the defensive end was running down the opposite side, 40 yards downfield. All of a sudden, he spots me and he releases the ball, and I'm in the end zone. And I'm thinking, oh, he threw it over my head. And all of a sudden, I
Yeah.
leaped with all my might. I don't know, 18, 19, 20 feet. I kind of forget
There you
after
go.
all these years.
Yeah.
And I grabbed the ball and came down and scored that touchdown to give us a lead, and a lead we never relinquished. But
Awesome.
so
Awesome. I'm going to go after this interview. I'm going to go find that on YouTube and watch it again.
watch it again.
I've seen that like 100 times. I love it. I was born and raised by Pittsburgh parents, so I was born
Oh,
watching this.
oh, you were born watching. That's good. That's it.
Uh, well, Rocky Bleier, I enjoyed this thoroughly. First and foremost, thank you for your service to the country. That's
You're
that's
welcome.
that's the best part of all this. But I really enjoyed the conversation. We'll have to do it again, because being coachable isn't just a sports skill; it's a life skill.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're proving. You prove it every day. So,
Well,
thank you.
thank you. Thank you.
All right, thanks.